doing protocol translation or whether you're trying to build some sort of telephone interface to an existing application or those sorts of things, you'll see that Asterisk a lot of places gets deployed initially not as a PBX, but simply as a toolkit to solve one particular problem. Maybe you're just trying to add an audio conference bridge to an existing PBX. Or maybe you're trying to take a web application and make a voice interface to it so that people can call in and interact with that application over the phone. A lot of the deployments I've seen, this is the first way that that Asterisk gets into the data center, so to speak. And then once people find the power of it, then they start saying, "Oh, we should replace our PBX with this. This is really powerful." And that's kind of how it kind of gets its foot in the door. And it really does. Trust me. Now, I shouldn't, with what happened in the Gulf of Mexico and the BP oil rig, I probably shouldn't put a picture of an oil rig up there. That's probably not politically correct. But I use this picture to illustrate the concept that Asterisk is a platform. Anybody here done any web development? There's a few. So when you're writing web applications, do you have to worry about, well, how does my server talk to the browser? Not typically, right? You have a web server that takes care of that piece, and you just write your logic and pass that off to the web server. In much that same, in a very similar way, when you're writing applications in Asterisk and adding your logic in Asterisk, you don't have to worry about, well, how do I talk to an analog line? How do I talk to a T1 line? How do I talk to a SIP phone? You can write your application logic at a higher level and let Asterisk worry about the underlying connections and how to make those. And so you can really focus on what it is your application is trying to do. And Asterisk has a very modular architecture to it. Imagine that it's a bucket of Lego building blocks. And you get to choose which blocks you're going to use and how you're going to stick those together to build the application that you're trying to build. You don't have to use every module that comes with Asterisk. You get to pick and choose which ones you want to use. And modern versions of Asterisk have about 160 to 170 roughly different modules that you can use and decide whether I want to load that one or not load that one, just depending on your particular application. All right. Now, obviously, there are products out there built up around Asterisk. I don't want to spend too much time on doing a sales pitch because I don't think you're here for a sales pitch. You're probably here for more of the technical details. But I will point out that there are turnkey solutions built on top of Asterisk. You can buy OEM licenses from Digium. You can buy support for Asterisk from Digium. There's embedded systems. There's hosted solutions, all built on top of the Asterisk platform. From the open source project side of things, the website is asterisk.org. There's about 15 or 20 what we call lead developers. These are people who have proven themselves within the Asterisk community that they know how to do the right thing, that they're trusted to be able to go in and change the code and fix things and add features and those sorts of things. And let me point out that about half of those work for Digium, and the other half are just from the community at large. So there's a nice balance between the development efforts that Digium's putting into Asterisk and the development efforts that the greater community at large puts into Asterisk. Behind those, there's hundreds of contributors. People like me who aren't in the code every single day, but from time to time will say, hey, I'd like to fix that bug, or hey, here's a new feature I'd like to add, or I want to change the way this works. And what I do is I submit my changes to one of these lead developers. They check them off and say, yep, that's good to go, or hey, you may want to change this little thing. Hey, you haven't thought this through all the way. You may want to refactor this. And then they go ahead and check it into the upstream code. And then we have literally, like I said, tens of thousands of users who are doing testing or posting bug reports or helping other people with problems or going out and creating some really unique solutions with Asterisk. And how many people here have used open source programs before? I'm guessing at least half of the room has. So like many other open source projects, Asterisk is run as what we call a meritocracy. A meritocracy means that as you show you're doing the right thing, you know what you're doing, you gain the trust of the other people in the community, you get more and more power, more and more enablement to be able to make changes to the code without having to go through one of the lead developers. Pretty soon, you become a lead developer, and on we go. Now, the Asterisk community has a lot of very rich resources to ask questions, to get help, to get up to speed in these sorts of things. One of the primary mechanisms we use for communication is a set of mailing lists. So you can go to lists.digium.com. There's an Asterisk users list for kind of end user questions. There's an Asterisk developers list for people working on the C code of Asterisk. asking questions of how do I code this in so it works. There's an Asterisk documentation list. There's probably half a dozen other lists at least that you can subscribe to. Anybody here use IRC chat before? There's an IRC chat, set of IRC chat rooms. Even though I'm not in Asterisk day to day, you'll still see me hanging out in the IRC chat rooms and getting questions answered and helping other people with things there. Obviously, the Astricon conference, you guys have probably heard of that. But like I said, there's also Asterisk users groups in cities around the world. There's lots of blogs and those sorts of things out there as well. Again, I don't want to spend too much time talking about the business ecosystem around Asterisk, but there obviously Digium is kind of the leader of the pack as far as that goes. There's distributors and resellers worldwide, value-added resellers, Asterisk consultants, equipment manufacturers, software developers that have built up a huge business ecosystem around Asterisk and around open source telephony. So on this slide, I want to talk a little bit about what Asterisk isn't. We've talked about what Asterisk is. Now I want to kind of try to clear up some of the misconceptions about, and talk about what Asterisk isn't. First of all, Asterisk isn't yet a consumer product. It's not something you're going to go buy off the shelf at Staples or Walmart, throw on a computer and say, woohoo, I have a PBX. Well, there's some configuration and things that you need to understand before you go about that. The next thing I want to clear up is that Asterisk is not Vonage in a box. You can certainly use Asterisk to build a small internet telephony service provider type business. You probably need more than just Asterisk. You probably need some other software. You probably ought to have some specialized hardware. And more importantly than anything, you really ought to have some knowledge about how these things work. So you can build those sorts of things with Asterisk, but it's not just as simple as installing Asterisk on a box and say, aha, I'm going to be the next Vonage. Okay? We talked a little bit earlier that this is not a SIP proxy. Again, remember, a proxy is never the endpoint of a call. Asterisk is what we call a back-to-back user agent, meaning it can be the endpoint of a call. It sits in the middle of the calls and bridges calls together. Last but not least, how many people think that Asterisk is hard? Oh, come on, you can admit it. It's not the easiest thing to get up and running in the world. I'll admit that. The first time I started using Asterisk, I was absolutely overwhelmed. I think it took me 3 months to get the first call to go through the system just because I didn't have a good understanding of how things worked. So it's not that hard, and I hope by the end of the presentation today you understand the basics and have that foundation so that you know how to get started with it. There's a question over here. We've got one question over here, and then I'll get to you.
Could you please explain what you mean by back-to-back user agent? Because I've seen two RTP stream between two endpoints
Sure.
going directly as opposed to going late.
Right. And so what we mean by back-to-back user agent is when a call is first set up, you'll have the first leg of a call will come from, say, this phone here. Let's say I'm calling from this phone into my Asterisk box and then from my Asterisk box out to the SIP phone. There's actually going to be two different calls there. There'll be a call from this phone to Asterisk, and it'll have its own RTP stream if you're using one of the protocols that uses RTP. And then there's a second call from Asterisk to this other phone. And it can be using a completely different RTP stream, different codecs, different protocols, whatever the case may be. And Asterisk is bridging those two calls together. Imagine it's two people with their backs to each other and then sharing a conversation. And then the call, in the case of the protocols that use RTP for the audio, it can actually, what we call, re-invite that audio between the endpoints and say, hey, you two endpoints, talk directly to each other. But yes, the basic idea is Asterisk is sitting in the middle, bridging two different calls, which is a slightly different model than some of the other PBXs use. Okay, you had a question.
Oh, okay. I guess at this point, I'm questioning the difference between signaling and the RTP stream. I mean, the media stream itself is a completely different thing than the taking up and the tearing down.
Sure, and we'll talk about that in a little more depth here, but they're often interrelated because you usually use the signaling to get the media stream up and running.
You can't initiate a stream until you have like a set session first.
Right, and in the case of voice over IP, yeah, that's the case.
What happens to me a lot is there's so much confusion between the
Yep, and we'll get into that. All right. So the next thing we want to talk about is how does Asterisk get used? How can it help me? Why am I even interested in Asterisk? There's lots of different places you can deploy Asterisk. Obviously, you can deploy it as a replacement for a traditional PBX. Okay. Here I've got some analog phones. I've got maybe a T1 connection out to the public switch telephone network. Just a rip and replace of your traditional PBX. Okay. Well, obviously, that's using just old school technology, T1 lines and analog lines. We want to get a little fancier than that, right? So we could go voice over IP. In fact, we could go voice over IP only. We can use SIP phones. We can use internet connections to call out to an internet telephony service provider. We could do call routing between offices directly through the internet. That works, right? What if we wanted to mix and match? Can we mix some analog and T1 along with our voice over IP? Obviously, we can do a hybrid solution, which mixes the two of those. And again, it depends on your circumstances, which of those sorts of things you want to do. But we have that flexibility in Asterisk. Again, Asterisk is agnostic. It doesn't care if the call came in over SIP or it came in over an analog line or came in across a T1 trunk line. It doesn't care. It's just a call. Okay. Another way you may deploy Asterisk is you see these square boxes in this diagram here. Imagine that those are existing PBXs that you already have. And maybe you connect your existing PBXs to your Asterisk system and use Asterisk as a signaling gateway. It's going to convert, say, T1 signaling coming out of your existing PBX, convert that to voice over IP, and now your boxes can communicate through the internet to each other and do toll bypass, or they can call out through an internet telephony service provider and save a bunch of money on your long distance calls or your international calls. Okay? Another few fun things you can do with Asterisk. You can also use Asterisk as a feature server. Maybe you want to hang it off the back end of your existing PBX and just use it for voicemail or audio conferencing or custom applications that you want to write within the Asterisk scripting language. Use it as a feature server. You don't have to do a forklift upgrade of your existing PBX, but you can use Asterisk in conjunction with your existing PBX to provide features. I will warn you, though, you're going to start out going down this route, and pretty soon you're going to say, maybe we just ought to replace the PBX. Just a word of warning there. Okay. People in the contact center, the call center industry love Asterisk because they can do your automated call distribution like you can with most call center type solutions. But you can do remote agent solutions. You can have agents dial in from their cell phone or their home phone or a pay phone in Afghanistan, wherever they want to call in from, and be remote agents. You can do things like call monitoring, call recording. You can even do things like service on hold. One of the things I always wanted to write in Asterisk but never got around to it was a service on hold module that was some kind of trivia game. So while you're waiting on hold, you play this trivia game, and if you get the questions answered right, you get bumped up higher in the queue. Of course, the downside to that is if you get the questions wrong, then you get bumped back further in the queue. Not so good. But the whole infrastructure is there in Asterisk to be able to do that sort of thing. You can obviously do things like skills-based routing or geographic routing of calls. You can do failover. So hey, I try to route the call to this call center. If that call center isn't available, route it to this other call center. Just the flexibility that it gives you there in the contact center industry is great. And then, like I said earlier, the carriers love Asterisk as well. They won't often admit it in public, but they're a lot of times using it in various ways on the back end. Whether they're using it as a feature server, or they're providing some sort of hosted service that's built on top of Asterisk, or some sort of routing solution, whether it's least cost routing or best quality routing or time of day routing. Question?
Compare it to Microsoft's OCS?
I can't because I don't know enough about OCS. I'll be honest. What little I've dealt with OCS, I didn't get a good feel for everything that it did, and I didn't completely wrap my head around it. I've been so far in the Unix and Linux world for a number of years that the Microsoft stuff is really foreign to me. I'm sure there's other people in here that can probably answer that question, but I'll be honest, I don't know enough about it to be able to give you a good comparison. But Asterisk will talk to it. I know that much. Okay. Some of the other things that carriers like to use this for is say, a local point of presence. Maybe they deploy an Asterisk box in several cities around the country, and then they route the calls through that local point of presence. And they obviously use it for things like voicemail, unified messaging, peering, calling cards, and international callback services. A lot of times are built on top of Asterisk as well. Okay, so